the more complex, the more you're going to lean towards outside of the other factors that Andy mentioned in terms of just general size and general levels of maturity. So you could be a $50 million a year company that is in construction management or custom OEM equipment manufacturer that has all of these complexities, and this would still make sense because of those additional complexities.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The planning systems serve a critical function in architecture. They are not meant to be a replacement for an ERP. They are also not supposed to host the ERP processes inside them. The planning systems could vary per industry and sometimes could be even more complicated than an ERP. So where does Kinexis stand in its capabilities, and how does it compare with other supply chain systems? In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct independent review of Kinexis capabilities. We covered many grounds, including their unique strengths and how they compare with other Infor products. Finally, we covered how it compares with other supply chain solutions out there. With that, let's get to the conversation.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. And if you are joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We pick one vendor or the solution that we review independently. And this is part of our supply chain series. And for today, we have a solution called Kinaxis that we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my intro, Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, I am going to move to Dave for his intro, and it seems like he's drinking milk, I guess.
It kind of looks that way today.
Well, it's red milk.
Just a white cup is all.
So.
Hey everybody, my name is Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting business, and I come to you with more than 20, I did the math the other day. Actually, now I can say more than 25 years of various operational leadership roles.
25 is so much more impressive than 20.
I forgot.
Right?
That's what I don't know how Andy does it, to be completely honest.
It's been 27 years, Andy, believe it or not.
Andy, they say that you stop counting after 18 years, okay? You should not.
No, you start going backwards.
Go, Dave, go. Sorry.
Sorry, Dave. Sorry, buddy.
No. I come to you with more than 25 years of various operational leadership roles, and now as an independent consultant. And excited to be here with the two of you, and looking forward to having this conversation.
And Dave, thank you so much. And obviously, you need milk for this show. This gets a little intense, I guess.
That's right.
Strong bones.
Strong bones. Okay, Andy, go, please.
My name's Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software for manufacturers since 1981. I'm not going to add that math up, but it's more than 25 years. And I worked all over North America. I've worked with over 1,000 manufacturers. I also teach people how to evaluate and how to uncover the truth about ERP software. And in fact, I have a webinar tomorrow. It's on at 10 o'clock Pacific time, so it's 1 o'clock East. Thanks a lot for inviting me, Sam.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy, and please join the webinar. I mean, Andy is super knowledgeable, as always, and he does not need milk. He is super strong. He's made of steel.
I already got the muscle.
He was designed for manufacturing, right, Andy?
Well, they say, so how big is your team, Andy? I say, I'm the biggest.
Oh my goodness. All right, guys. So let's start the briefing, I guess. Andy, you are
Please
so
do,
funny. I mean,
Sam. Get me off this
the
microphone.
whole hour we are only going to be laughing, and then I don't know. It's always like this,
We're not supposed to have fun.
right? Exactly. Okay, so let's start on the briefing a little bit, and I'm pretty sure I don't know if you guys are going to have any sort of experience with this solution. If you have, obviously, I would love to hear that. But overall, I'll give you some context in terms of where these guys fit in different solutions that we have reviewed. Again, going back to the whole supply chain space, I guess we probably have reviewed more than 20 now, and some of the layers that we always touch about these solutions is going to be number one, they sort of are the combination of WMS plus TMS. Some of them are going to include the data, and I think the layer that is going to be super critical for these guys, my perception of these guys, they are really known for their SNOP capabilities. In my mind, that's how I always thought about these guys. But even these guys seem to have developed a lot of different capabilities. So when I say SNOP, we are talking about real data, the analytics, the insights. SNOP has so many different components. You are going to have the transactional workflow component. That's where, when you look at solutions like Manhattan, Blue Yonder is sort of in between. I mean, they have the SNOP capabilities as well. Most of them are going to have some, but when you look at the true SNOP platform, you are looking at solutions such as Anaplans of the world, Kinexis. And again, I'm not talking about FP&A. I'm really talking about SNOP, which is very different. FP&A is sort of, it's a world in itself, I guess. FP&A, CPM, SNOP is a very, very, very different world. And typically, when you get into this whole analytics world, industry matters a lot. And that's why each of these solutions are probably going to be positioned for a very specific industry. And that's where sort of, when you look at Blue Yonder, Manhattan, even they are targeting very, very, very specific industries, to be completely honest, because, their data is not going to work for anybody else, even though they might have the transactional, the workflow, the operational capabilities to support a lot of industries, but they might not work with the others. So I guess data is sort of the driver, and that's why we have so much segmentation in terms of why these solutions are targeting very specific industries. So Kinaxis is probably going to be one of the strongest, at least in my mind, in manufacturing. Okay, so manufacturing SNOP, which is a very different capability than your retail SNOP. When you look at retail SNOP, you are looking at capabilities such as your merchandising, planning, very, 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 very different experience. And that's where you get into those scenarios of planograms, which we saw, I believe, in the case of, if I remember correctly, planograms, and you guys need to remind me as well. If I remember correctly, that was Manhattan. Manhattan, yes, I believe, or Blue Yonder, one of those, I guess. Blue Yonder, no, not Manhattan. Manhattan is WM. Blue Yonder was JDA, if I remember correctly. Okay, so that's where sort of the retail capabilities are, but these guys are trying to do a little bit of transportation management, the WMS, but WMS TMS, that's altogether different. The OMS we saw in a lot of different solutions. So these guys are really positioned in that data space, but they have some more capabilities if companies want to go for that. For the most part, these guys are going to be probably present in very large accounts, SAP, Oracle. That's where they sort of hang out for the SNOP capabilities. Their competitors or competing solutions are obviously going to be SAP IBP is probably one of them. Obviously they are probably competing with Anaplans of the world for the analytics, but they are not going to have the other operational capabilities. They must be competing with Blue Yonders of the world, because Blue Yonder is going to have the data plus the operational capabilities. So it's very interesting the way these solutions are made. So I don't know, Dave, Andy, do we want to cover any more layers? Should we start on slides? What do you guys think?
I'm good.
Dave, any insights by any chance from your side?
No, I think we're good to jump into some slides here.
Okay. And we'll be talking about some layers as we move the slides, I guess. So here, the way they are positioning This is also a Canadian company, a lot of Canadian supply chain companies. So Kinexis is a leading provider of cloud-based subscription software, which does not mean anything. Everybody is a cloud-based subscription software these days, I guess. But at least they are positioning themselves as cloud-based, which is good. Okay, that means you are probably going to get new technology. Improve and accelerate analysis and decision making. That's how they are positioning. That's how SNOP solution would sound if you're looking at a true SNOP solution and not just some supply chain solution. Supply chain is a category in itself, in that you have SNOP is one of that, which is primarily, geared more towards data as opposed to anything else. Across their supply chain operations, we combine human intelligence with artificial intelligence, and by the way, the whole AI piece. If one area that is really consuming, utilizing AI capability, that's going to be in data platforms. Okay, they really, really need to have that, because they are looking at slightly more future state. They are looking at what if scenarios. They are trying to forecast demand. They are trying to forecast supply. They are trying to accommodate, let's say, if you are going to get a large order, what do you need to do operationally, as well as from the planning perspective. So that's where, I mean, see, when you get into really larger operations, you need to have that before you can commit for that order, or before you can commit for any of the capacity that you are building for the future. So for the most part, this is slightly more to be state, which is going to be slightly more financially planned, I guess. Based on your data. So these are not your operational transactions that you are processing on a daily basis. There is a little distinction there. So that's why AI is super critical, because AI does far better job for whatever you need to know about future as opposed to today. Okay, so that's why AI is really critical here, and these guys are really sort of embedding the AI capabilities as part of their solution. Their solution named is called Cloud-Based Rapid Response Platform. So Kinaxis is the company. Rapid Response is a platform, which is also very popular name. Okay, so a little note there. Empowers planners, and they have the personas defined there. Managers, business leaders, and information technology professionals to know sooner, act faster, remove waste, so they make decisions that improve the bottom line, make use of resources, and facilitate better work life. A lot of fluff there, but for the most part, we are looking at planning is what they are saying. And then we have, obviously we serve the needs of global Fortune 100, 500, and other large and mid-sized companies, relatively larger, I would say, not mid-size. I mean, they are going to be fairly expensive, if my understanding is right. Primarily focusing on companies with revenues over $250 million in revenue. That's a decent sized company across 7 vertical markets, and they have defined these vertical markets. So one of the trend that you are going to see in this market, so their markets is high technology and electronics manufacturing, aerospace and defense, industrial products, then life sciences and pharmaceuticals, automotive, consumer products and retail. And Andy, I'm pretty sure you have spotted the trend here. Okay, the trend is going to be, these are the same verticals that QAD is targeting.
You know what? It's amazing when I see so many diverse targets, so many diverse markets that are being targeted by a single product, because something that's good for aerospace and defense is rarely going to be good for life science and pharmaceuticals. So this is really interesting.
Depending upon which lenses you are looking from, to be completely honest, the perspective is really important. So here, their perspective is very supply chain focused. The way supply chain planning works for these industries, these are very supply chain heavy verticals, especially when you talk about slightly more manufacturing centric supply chain planning. And that's what QAD is really good for. QAD, even though they position themselves as ERP, they are ERP, but they are supply chain solution first, to be completely honest. So that's why we have so much overlap between your QAD as well as Kinexis. In fact, if you look at portfolio of Thama Bravo, which is the company that is holding, I don't know how many different supply chains, like literally every supply chain solution in the world is owned by them. Okay.
Wow.
And they are targeting these verticals, to be honest. I don't know, Kinexis is probably not owned by, but these are very similar. They have, I believe they have Project 44. They have QAD, obviously. We have a lot of them, the ones that we have reviewed. So here, customers are primarily global enterprises with complex supply chain networks and significant unresolved supply chain challenges. Okay, I don't have much there, but the size of the customers that we are looking at: Merck and Co., Pharma, humongous pharma. Okay, Ford Motor Company. Okay, humongous
I've
automotive.
heard of them.
You have heard of them, Andy. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure you have heard of them.
Procter and Gamble. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I guess one of the things that you might know, again, these are like super Fortune 100 logos, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so the other thing that I would like to highlight here is they have called out the ERP such as Oracle or SAP, and that's where they really play. Their plays, to be completely honest. Okay. And this is the distinction that, okay, these are the same target markets that QAD is also targeting, but obviously they are slightly more integrated as opposed to just the supply chain solution. But these guys are slightly more SNOP platform. Both have their place. Now, Andy, you have a comment? Sorry.
No. I was just,
Okay.
again, who's who in the zoo. There's a whole long list of people that they're attached to.
Yeah, exactly. And some comments which are going to be really interesting overall for the buyers, I guess, the way these companies like to position themselves versus what is their reality. Okay, so these guys, the way these guys like, so this is coming from their lenses. This is coming from their financial statement. And they have, called out, obviously, such partners include Accenture, Deloitte, EY, Genpact, MSC Solutions. All of these partners are referral partners direct new opportunities to us under a business arrangement. We regard value-added resellers as an extension of our sales, and that's who they really are. Resellers are supposed to be extension, even though they are not the same business. They are supposed to be the extension of OEMs. That's how their business model is. So that's a real distinction. They are not supposed to be independent. Any resellers, if they are claiming to be independent, that's not true. So resells and supports rapid response in select markets with a focus on mid-market companies. We work with solution extension partners such as ForFlow, OCYO Consulting, as well as Planet Together to provide additional applications on our platform. By the way, I mean, they have called out their competitor as well, which is Project 44, which I would consider as their competitor because they are very similar supply chain solution. We are going to review them as well. But seems like they are working together. In supply chain space, a lot of solutions are working together. Sometimes they might have different data sets and they need to work together because they are going to complement each other. So we have Project 44, we have Lever Data and Bloom Global to provide additional data streams and signaling to increase the value that customers gain from rapid response. And my understanding is going to be that they have different data sets that Kinexis is not going to have, and that data is the power.
So you think there's overlap, but they complement each other?
Different data sets, sometimes. Yeah. So for example, let's say if you look at Descartes, right? If Descartes has the bill of lading data, they are going to have very unique data set. When we looked at C.H. Robinson is going to have one of the largest network because obviously they have carved out agreements with a lot of different ERP providers. That's number one. Then they have really, really large network for themselves because they are a consulting company. So they have so many companies under their umbrella, right? So nobody will be able to match the kind of data that they have. And if you want to compete with them, you have to sort of partner together because most of these companies are probably going to have just one data set. So sometimes the data may come from your bill of lading data. Sometimes that may come from internal supply network. Sometimes that may come from, I don't know, the international data. You have air data, you have ocean data. There's so much going on. Some of them are public, some of them are not, depending upon where, how the political forces are set up, I guess. And vendors are trying to do whatever they can in their power to provide the insights, and wherever they are going to have gaps, they are either going to partner or they are going to use AI to augment those data sets. Only if they have sufficient data underneath. AI is sort of meaningless if you're not going to have at least, partial data. You need to have enough data to be able to support. Okay, so okay, do you guys see anything else?
Well, you're mentioning that you're not sure what cascaded means. I'm pretty sure that's named you. Because they're all cascaded in a row. It's serial as opposed to parallel.
Interesting. And I don't know why they would call that as a capability. to be completely honest, because these
Well,
guys are trying to sell.
It's true. First off, it's a sales pitch, but the reason why there's an emphasis, larger companies, concurrent users has a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Smaller companies, named users and concurrent users are used the same, or very little difference, and it's not worth the additional cost. But
yeah,
they're probably targeting much larger companies, and therefore, especially when they have multiple time zones across countries, they can share the users over multiple locations and not pay more.
Yeah, I'm not going to have any sort of follow-up comments there, I guess. I'm not going to open my mouth. If I don't know something, Dave knows me.
I like Andy's response. Just say I'm right.
Anyways, that would be obviously we don't know.
Yeah.
That would be my interpretation. Those are names, or they call them cascade or whatever.
We'll take that, Andy. Thank you so much for the insights. Really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. They say blind squirrels can even find a nut once in a while.
Andy is funny. Okay. So let's look at this quadrant. Okay. So quadrant is obviously coming from Gartner. They do a wonderful job. This is from 2023. Okay. And, one of the things.
It's right up there, eh?
Yeah. So one of the things that you need to understand reading about Gartner, even they have sort of the fine line that you need to pay attention, that they always say that use Magic Quadrant in the context it was written, because it could mean a very different thing when you are not going to be reading it from the same lenses. So they are very, very, very careful with that. And that's why we want to make sure that you are reading with the right lenses as well. So here, this is really for the supply chain planning solutions, which is the right category that they are trying to position. To be completely honest, this is new. So obviously, this is fresh. This is the S&OP category. When you are going to look at supply chain solutions, there are going to be many different categories out there. This is really for S&OP, which is going to be planning. And that's why you are going to see solutions such as O9. O9 is a very, solution as your Kinexis. They are going to be slightly, I would not say smaller. They are also targeting very enterprise-centric accounts, to be completely honest. So you have O9, you have Blue Yonder, you have Kinaxis. They all target very similar target ones. Then you have some more new names, I guess, and we probably need to review them. I don't think we have reviewed them. So you have OMP, you have Coupa, which is very interesting. I don't know why Coupa is here. I don't know how much, and that could be because of their recent acquisition that they acquired. It's a possibility, but for the most part, Coupa is not supposed to be S&OP platform. It's supposed to be slightly more transactional platform, the workflow platform for P2P, which is very different than your planning solution. Relics is going to be a planning solution. They are really into that. Anaplan is the S&OP connected planning platform, which is not going to have as deep built-in functionality for manufacturing retail, I guess. It's slightly more technical platform. Let's put it this way.
Isn't Anaplan like a scheduling? No, I'm wrong.
It's S&OP.
Okay, all right.
S&OP, it's supposed to be connected planning for the most part. Connected planning meaning you have the FP&A, you have human resources, but you don't have this one platform that can do it all. Anaplan is one. In fact, even if you look at solutions such as Kinaxis, I don't think they can do FP&A. They cannot do consolidation, so you don't really have finance. So Anaplan is slightly more diverse. I would say that you don't have to have 5 planning platforms. In general, most companies are probably using 3 or 4 or 5. Each team uses their own sort of planning platform, which is not too bad. But if you are obviously on one platform, then all of those data sets are probably going to be connected. Then you don't have to build data warehouse. But even with planning solutions, you are probably building data warehouse when you are going to be at that size, I guess. So I don't know where you draw the line. But Anaplan is slightly more ERPs of the planning world, I guess, because they are really connected. And QAD is there because they have heavy supply chain planning component. The way their targeting strategy is, they are really supply chain solution first, and then they are ERP. So very different approach overall. The way they like to think about themselves, the way their acquisition strategy is. Even today, they are very supply chain heavy. Now, so Andy, here they are using the term called concurrent planning. And planning is very deep as well. They have many different concepts, and I don't like to claim that I know a lot about planning to be completely, but concurrent planning, it's a feature, and that's why they are positioning it as that. And planning is very deep in general. The way it's done, it goes really deep. When you look at the enterprise-centric planning scenarios, it's very, 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 very deep. So they have coined some more terms here, such as the multi-echelon, inventory optimization, which is a very interesting term. This is going to be really for multi-location. It's very hard to plan when you are going to design the network. So they have that. Again, that's typically used in retail, but when you are going to be retail plus manufacturing, it's even harder. Then you have the production scheduling. I want to be slightly careful. When you say production scheduling, there are two components there. One is the actual scheduling component, and there is planning scheduling component. These two are two different things. Okay, so you can sort of compute your variables that you are going to use in your planning. So you can do your what if scenarios in a very external system, and that's completely okay. There's no problem at all, just because you are sort of doing the study. But when you do the actual execution, that has to be inside your ERP. If you are going to hijack that, then you might be in trouble. And that's where people sort of cross the wires, because they don't necessarily understand, okay, which solution should host production scheduling. Should you be hosting inside your SNOP platform versus ERP? So typically architecture is all over the place. For the most part, the role of SNOP system in general is going to be the planning component. It is not supposed to do your
Right,
operational
execution.
transactions. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
these two bullets that you're pointing out, like concurrent planning, it's the first time I've heard the word concurrent in front of planning before. Usually, concurrent is more for execution because it's to do with real life constraints and real life resources and which ones all blend together to make sure you're not going to have a problem. But I guess the planning's meaning is to do with they can blend all that together in a forecast level.
My understanding of this is going to be, this is a very technical term. That's my
Mm.
understanding. That's where that is coming from in terms of how the planning scenarios are executed. To be complete, but again, I don't like to speak if I don't know something.
Hey,
Uh,
you know what? We see this stuff. So half the time we have to surmise it from our expertise and what we know, and basically, we're not going to be right every time. But
Yeah, yeah. But my guess is going to be that this is probably technical term because it gets very heavy. In fact, if you remember the lawsuit that, which one, who had that? Do you remember?
the list is
There was a
long, my
company that
friend.
could, one of those, either JDA or Blue Yonder, one of those. I don't know who had that. Okay, so the lawsuit, because they actually failed to do the planning between your location as well as SKU, and that in my mind would be your multi-echelon inventory optimization. And when you have the SKUs at your Fortune 100 level, you have no idea how much computing power you require, how complex that gets. So that's the concurrent planning that they are looking at. Again, in my mind, I think that's a very technical term. In planning, that has a lot more relevance in general. Yeah. And by the way, you are going to look at the reviews and you are going to see the trends, right? Some people have complained about the speed, and typically speed is a factor when you look at the planning engine, because the amount of work that these planning engines do, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. Operational systems are not really designed for that kind of computing. These two are very different design. Then we have the recycling planning. That gets very hard as well. You have transportation planning. Again, this is not the operational component. This is the planning component, which is very different, which could be, from the processing perspective, it could be deeper. Okay, it requires far more technical capability, not necessarily functional capability. Okay, technical capabilities, it would require more, and that's why the play of AI is slightly more relevant in this particular space. Then, surprisingly enough, they also have order management, transportation management, returns management, spare parts management, as well as the control tower. I don't think their capabilities are going to be as deep, to be completely honest, in these areas. That would be my understanding. For the most part, return management, there are two aspects of even return management, whether you are looking at the operational aspect or you are looking at planning aspect. I think these guys are doing more of the planning. Even for the spare parts, my understanding is going to be that they are probably doing planning, but since it is listed as part of your supply chain execution, maybe they have some workflow capability. Okay, so here we have some more insights. Overall, if you look at their connectors, the integrations, they are really playing in the SAP S4HANA, Oracle, Salesforce is also there because you are going to get a lot of data from Salesforce. Salesforce does carry some of the operational data, especially when you are going to be mixing the architecture, when you are, let's say, using Service Cloud, and you are using CPQ from Salesforce, then Salesforce is probably going to have a partial state of your operational data. So depending upon how your architecture is implemented, Salesforce might carry some data, because even though they call themselves CRM, but it's far deeper. Even in the CRM category, they are almost like ERP of CRM world, I guess. Uh, so I don't know where you draw the line. But so here you have the internal data, you have ERP, manufacturing, BI, and data warehouse is the one that I had mentioned that you are probably going to have that. So this is your internal data. Typically, you are overlaying this with the industry data, and for the most part, supply chain teams, marketing teams, they are probably going to be utilizing a lot of external data as well. And that's where the beauty of planning solution come, because they are sort of trying to combine both of those and trying to draw insights that you need to be able to plan. The external data is going to be logistics, and a lot of data is available. You can do a lot, on the logistics data. You have the customer data. Sometimes you might get external customer data as well from your suppliers, maybe, I don't know. Or if the customers are willing to share their data, so that helps with the inventory planning as well. Sometimes, let's say, the way your contracts are set up, sometimes they might be. Industry 4.0 is a great data cloud. It's a technology. So that's pretty much it on this one. Any comments? No? Okay. So we have some more commentary here. This is coming from and their screens are very planning centric, and for the most part, the way planning systems are done, they are very Excel interface centric, because they are giving the capabilities of Excel to planners. Most of the planners, they are really savvy in Excel capability. They are like super good at Excel in general, and these platforms are designed from the perspective of planners. They are really for planners. They are not for everybody else. This is going to be for inventory planners, production planners, anything any titles that plan. This is their bread and butter. So here we are talking about built-in network modeling, synchronization strategies, differentiated service level management, and replenishment rules. So you are planning all of that. You are planning reverse logistics, real-time reverse supply chain data inputs for dismantling bills of materials. Now you are not necessarily, you are simply modeling the scenarios, and doing what if analysis in terms of, if you did that, are you going to have any sort of financial savings? That's what you are doing in this one. Dismantling routes, remanufacturing routes, and push flows. That's pretty much it. But again, very, very, very planning centric workflow. TLO planning is very unique. I don't think we have seen TLO planning term being used anywhere so far that we have reviewed. And this is coming from your capacity, material availability, and planning horizon, right? So this is all very planning based workflow. It is not supposed to be your operational workflow. There's a little distinction the way your vernacular is used. It's always very confusing if you are not from the space. But there's a big distinction between what these guys are talking versus what ERP guys are going to talk. So be careful. Here we are talking about, for TLO planning, they are saying optimize and plan your orders into physical loads that can be shipped while automatically considering supply chain network aspects such as capacity, material availability, and planning horizon. The execution in CO2, ESG is a big topic. A lot of people talk about ESG. Whether you want to do ESG in your ERP versus planning software. Planning is always going to be slightly easier. You don't have to disrupt your operational workflow to be able to get the insight. It's much easier to add more dimensions. It's very easy to add or overlay data if you have to. So it's always a debate whether you want to do that in ERP versus SNOP. But in general, SNOP is going to be slightly less disruptive, as well as less expensive in general. But be careful, you cannot violate the architecture. You cannot touch the operational workflows, when you are touching these. So that's where I guess the distinction is. Learn if some orders were excluded from the optimization, and review the root cause to troubleshoot. There's nothing much there. Review and track the carbon emission of your lane, and that itself is a big deal. There are going to be reporting requirements. Now, do you report from your supply chain software versus your ERP? That's also a question. Technically, you can do that in the planning software. There should not be any problem. But again, if you are impacting any sort of operational workflow, then you may be crossing. But it's possible that you can do ESG inside your supply chain software. So Kinaxis Planning 1, again, they are all about planning. That's how they like to position themselves. So planning across demand, supply, inventory, and operational. Those four are many different planning exercises that different teams need to do. You are going to have different titles typically are responsible for that. But again, it's all planning, planning, planning. Most SMB, I don't know how much they plan. You can probably plan in a spreadsheet. And that's why planning gets very difficult when you are going to be at that $250, $100 million mark. That's when you need to plan a lot. Okay. Here, cut inventory and reduce stock out. Develop targeted inventory management improvement solutions. Simulate changes to inventory policies, and understand and balance trade-offs between on-time delivery, reduce risk, and inventory. Now, you might want to be careful the way you read this. Okay, even though they are saying inventory management, it is not meant to be inventory management. Okay, it's supposed to be the planning aspect of inventory. Okay, so again, they are really good at planning. That's where their play is. You should not be managing your inventory inside this one. That will be a big no-no if you are doing that. Unless you are retail centric organization where you probably don't have need for costing, etc. Sometimes that could be okay, but for the most part, this is not supposed to be your inventory software. Any comments, guys? If no, then so some of the things that you're going to see, and they have many different, if you look at their demos, some very interesting things that they have highlighted. So here you are going to have the part, the order ID, you are going to have priority. But again, this is all for the what if scenarios and planning. That's what they are trying to do. Planning, planning, and planning. Even if they might have the similar data sets as your ERP is going to have. So two different things, two different software. Here, yeah. So again, I would be slightly careful in terms of where you draw the boundary between your order-based planning. And sometimes these guys are going to claim that they can probably do ATP, they can do your shop schedule, production schedule, but their play is really future. Their play is not going to be current. In general, you might be able to do a little bit of study and then come back to your play area, but for the most part, they are really doing the future planning, not really planning as of this moment. Sometimes that might be okay when you are in an industry that does not move as fast, I guess, because you could probably plan in this. You can have two different systems and probably can afford to dance around, but that might cause a lot of trouble as well. So again, architecture is really important. Deciding the boundaries of each of these systems, which systems are going to be responsible for what, is going to be really critical. So here also, I think one of the things that is very unique that I have not seen in the other FP&A supply chain sort of centric solutions is going to be in visualizing the whole supply chain. Now, we saw the visualization aspect inside the SNOP platforms as well. But for the most part, this visualization is done more from the planning perspective. Again, the lenses is planning. Okay, even though they are giving you visual enforcement, this is more to plan because it's too complex. So that people need visual enforcement. But this is not the same as what you are getting the real-time supply chain, real-time exceptions. This is not that. Okay, so I guess one of the things that I have personally noticed that they are able to carry BOM, and this could be very confusing as well. That you have bill of materials. Your ERPs have bill of materials. What's the difference? The difference is really planning, and even ERP systems are going to claim that they can plan, but they are doing planning as of today. They are not doing planning. They are not as good at planning. Yes, you can do a little bit of planning, but when you are looking at really that heavy planning, you have a lot of different scenarios. When you have to overlay external data, when you have to overlay dimensions that are not never going to be part of your operational workflow, that's where you sort of create a sandbox. And again, even sandbox you can create with ERP. So you are going to think that, okay, this gets very confusing. But here, the whole idea of this is take back your data, plan it out. Once you have done your planning, then come back and operate in your ERP system. That's the whole idea of planning systems in the architecture. In general, they both are going to have very similar data sets, and that's where it gets really confusing. It's much easier to add a dimension, a data set. That's why ESG reporting is going to be far easier depending upon how much you are touching the operational data, how much data you need from the operational perspective. But for the most part, again, you are doing study, you are doing planning here, you are not managing your operation. That's a key distinction. But when you look at the core manufacturing, things get really difficult because the kind of bombs they are going to have, for, let's say, if you are doing supply chain planning for aerospace and defense, good luck with that. The bomb that they are going to have, the planning that you need to have, and the processing power that you're going to need, good luck with that. Yeah. So these are some of the data points that and some of the times, ERP is not even going to have those many states. Let's say if you have your order workflow and you want to find out, or you want to overlay some more stages or these states or these steps that you are going to have for the order, typically that is not available in ERP. And you don't want to have two verbose statuses inside ERP unless they are part of you, meaning that's how you are running your. Sometimes when you are going to sort of mix these two things, planning with your operations, you are just all over the place. You are going to have a lot of fun in general. So here you can add a lot more when you are going to require, let's say, additional segmentation or additional analysis, additional layers, additional stages, additional workflow. Much easier to do inside planning system. But again, make sure that is not part of your operational workflow. So there is a very thin line in terms of what you do inside this system versus ERP. Okay, so I guess the biggest use case, and this is going to be slightly debatable as well, and depending upon who you are talking to, I think they can argue, which is the best architecture, I guess. I don't know which one is best. It all depends upon the context, but you can have, depending upon your strategy. So whether you want to have multiple ERP systems, that's not always bad. You can have multiple ERP systems and consolidate them into your FP&A supply chain planning system if you like. Again, everything is going to have pros and cons. So typically, the role of planning systems becomes slightly more meaningful when you are going to have multiple systems. And in general, most companies are probably going to end up having multiple systems in general, regardless of how hard you try. Okay, you are going to have ERP, e-commerce, WMS, TMS, CRM. There's no way everybody's sitting in ERP. It doesn't work that way. So if you do that, then your planning becomes much harder because you need to correlate all of these databases and do the what if scenarios with the external data. Good luck doing that in the spreadsheet. You are going to have fun. So that's where this becomes very meaningful when you have to consolidate all of this internal data as well as external data to really draw the insights that is going to add tangible value to your business. Okay. Comments, guys?
You're knocking it out of the park today.
Dave, I'm waiting to hear from you, man. Come on.
You're doing a good job covering everything. I haven't had too many comments to add, so keep going.
Then. Yeah, we'll keep rolling then. Okay, so I guess this is the concurrency aspect they are trying to sell again, which is in my mind. So this is what they are trying to sell here. So if you look at, Andy, I don't know whether you remember this or not. So the reason why I was saying that concurrency is a very technical metric from their perspective, and I think that's probably right, because here, if you read this, they are saying concurrency and speed enable efficiency. Okay, so here they are trying to demonstrate this as, see, if you are going to do this in ERP, it probably took 56 hours. We are taking 1 hour. Okay, that's how much workload that we are talking about. Analysis of changes to build plans reduced from. Okay, depending upon how they were doing build planning. I don't know whether they were doing in a spreadsheet or ERP. We don't have that information, but they are talking about the speed. Speed is the name of the game. Okay, when you are going to be working with these complex workflows, the speed is going to be reduced with the planning systems, which is a big deal in general. Okay, and you require a lot of firepower. SNOP scenario creation and analysis reduced from 48 hours, and these scenarios are literally your entire business to be. You are literally replicating every single data point. Okay, and you have, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 different scenarios. That's like 5 or 6 different ERPs in a database. Can you believe this? That gets very, 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 very hard. Okay, so assessment of demand plan variation reduced from, and each of the variables that you are going to have, and sometimes when you are going to have that multivariate analysis, it's a lot of work. ERPs are not designed for that. It's from 14 days to 2 minutes. Then you have new order assessment and commit process reduced from now. This is interesting. Okay. Now, do you really want to do like SNOP? I would question that a little bit. You could probably cross the line here because when you look at the commit process, obviously the commit process, the availability to promise, available to promise HP should be inside your ERP in general. Okay. So anything that you are doing from planning perspective, this is a great candidate, but if you try to do too much, you could struggle. Clear to build assessment reduced from, I don't know, this seems like a planning, so this is probably okay. Okay. So we have some reviews. So this is coming from 2021. Enterprise, more than 1,000 employees, which is probably the right space for them. There's a bit of a learning curve to be an advanced user within the tool. This makes it harder for some users to get high value out of the tools besides reporting and alerting. Okay, so there's a big debate always that ERP systems are very complex. If you use a true SNOP system, true FP&A system, you have no idea how hard they could be. They could get very complex in general. And that's what this user is complaining, that this is probably hard for him. But again, the job that it is doing, you have no idea. Again, this is very, very, very complex. So they are naturally going to be slightly more complex, and you are going to have significant learning curve. So be patient with you. Then we have the price year range, but still one of the more reputable options. Might be a little overkill for some organizations. I have to agree with this comment. It's definitely going to be pricier, and then you're paying for ERP plus your SNOP. Good luck with that. And for a smaller organization, they probably don't need as much planning, I guess. So planning has a place. You need to be.
Depends on where they are on that 51 to 1,000 employees. If they're on the bottom end, that makes sense. If they're on the top end, it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, even with 1,000 employees, depending upon how deep their supply chain is, because money is in supply chain for some industries, and they are really, really particular about that. That's why they invest in the planning solution. If you look at retail distribution, it's all about inventory. Even for manufacturing, once you are going to be past $50 million, even though my manufacturing friends might argue that they might claim that, it's all machines. Initially, you don't plan, and you're going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 50, maybe not even 70. But after that, it's all going to be inventory. Uh, so supply chain is very critical for any companies that are going to be carrying it. So here we have electronics manufacturing, 10,000 plus employees. Great. Okay, this is where you are going to have a lot of problems. This is coming from 6 years ago. Then they have able to do planning for next 1 year. Again, future to be. Okay, that's what they are doing in that. So if you want to forecast your inventory, you want to forecast your cash, you want to forecast for every single location, you want to forecast for every single product category, that's where this software is going to help. Since it looks exactly like working in Excel sheet, that's how they are designed. Long-term visibility of demand and supply. Okay, we can easily do the what if analysis in case of increase or decrease in demand. Forecasting demand is a big deal. It's very, very, very hard to forecast. And that's where you have a lot of problems in general. For inventory centric organization, forecasting demand, good luck with that. I mean, that's never right, even if you are going to use something like this. Plan and materials based on that. Okay, that's it. So I think we are going to open up for the comments. Dave, you have to speak up now, okay?
Now is your time.
Right?
No, it was a really great deck and an interesting solution for sure. I mean, for me, some of the most telling things were, one, the slide that talked about the difference in terms of turnaround time and that concurrent planning capabilities.
Bring that up, Dave. Which one was that?
Slide 14, Sam. Right, next one down.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
You remember the number as well.
Yeah.
That's the Dave I know.
Yeah. Imagine that. But yeah, I mean, for me, this is really telling, and this is the advantage of spending the money on an SNOP solution. And back to what Andy said and what you've said, and really kind of highlights the rest of the conversations that we have. But it depends on the level of maturity that your organization is at today, what you are trying to achieve moving forward in terms of what your, kind of growth trajectory looks like, and, the complexity of which you're trying to plan for. If you've got a $50 million a year relatively basic discrete manufacturer, you probably don't need this, right? So, it is a lot of firepower for the right situation. And when you find yourself in a situation that has layered complexities, like we talk about, that is a sizable organization, that you need to plan for anomalies, right? You have that one big order, you have those three big, projects that hit you. You need a way to be able to forecast this in a meaningful amount of time. You can't take 14 days to run this through 16 different shared Excel spreadsheets to, be able to create a demand plan. So again, it's like most things. Understand your business, understand the level of maturity and complexity that you have within your business before you start to evaluate and say, we need an SOP solution. The other thing I would add, and I think you touched on this earlier, is the fact that what I see with a lot of organizations is back to that overall data and organizational infrastructure piece, right? Understanding how these systems are going to function together, where your sources of truth are going to ultimately live, and how those process flows are going to happen in a real world scenario. Doing all of that work, by the way, before you go out and sit, through demos and take a look at a solution like this or any other solution. I mean, that is the stuff that I think we get excited about, right? From a leadership perspective, we get excited about, hey, we need this or we need to replace that. And there's a lot of kind of groundwork that needs to be covered prior to. So I'll leave it there and let you and Andy jump in.
Andy, do you have comments?
You know what I found really interesting is when we're going through the testimonials at the end there.
Okay, we'll bring that. Which one are you talking about?
10,000 one. Well,
10,000.
I mean, this one is a 1,000, which is pretty good size.
Last slide, Sam.
He only wants to aim for the bigger one, right? And
That's
the
okay.
bigger opportunities.
The point is that these two, one's 1,000 employee plus, one's 10,000 employee plus. This product is truly targeted, as it mentioned, to work with the Oracles or the SAP HANAs of the world. It's not a mid-market product. It's a big one.
I completely agree. Great comments, Andy. And, we are going to do a little podcast here because we have 4 minutes. So I'm going to ask some follow-up question, I guess. So Dave, describe layered complexity a little bit. So when you had mentioned layered complexity, let's say people don't know what that means and how that is going to correlate with the industries that they might be in. How do you expand that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something that you touched on earlier, Sam, but what I'm really referring to is, complex bills of material, where we're not just beyond the bill of material itself, but even, complex routings, bringing in outside processes or outside vendors and how those layer into either your project or, bill and routing and how those things flow through your operation. All of those layered complexities are going to impact your ability to execute and, create supply planning. So those are the things you need to be looking out for if you have a complex business like that versus something, kind of one layer, right? You have a couple raw materials, you have a couple of, maybe even you could have 50, 100, right, routing steps. But if it's relatively straightforward in terms of it goes from department 1 to department 50, and there's not a lot of, ins and outs and outside process and, all of those other types of things that we tend to see in more complex manufacturing operations, the more complex, the more you're going to lean towards outside of the other factors that Andy mentioned in terms of, just general size and general, levels of maturity. So you could be a $50 million a year company that is in construction management or, custom OEM equipment manufacturer that has all of these complexities, and this would still make sense because of those additional complexities, not because of, your revenue band or the number of employees that you have.
Could not agree more. Great distinction there. Andy, do you have any follow-up comments there by any chance? You live inside bombs, I guess. I'm pretty sure you're going to have something.
No, I was going to say, I am so happy that Dave is on these calls with me.
And why are you happy?
Well,
Because
thank
he looks
you.
good, or
He's a brilliant individual.
Wow,
He definitely is.
The compliments continue
he
to
got
fly.
everything.
Thank
I mean,
so much.
he's brilliant. He is good
I know
looking.
the $20 is in the mail, right, Dave?
I tell you, yeah, man, I'm gonna have to bonus you extra this week. So
Bonus extra, Andy. Good for you.
Anyways, that's all I have. Thanks.
All right, guys, if you don't have any other comments, we can wrap. All right, guys, so that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another vendor or the solution. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight.
thanks, guys.
Have a great day, everyone.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to thechrysler.club. It's THECRYSLER.CLUB. If you want to learn more about Andy Pratico, head over to ESSoft.com. It's ESSOFT.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.